So now let me introduce this tremendous panel. We are joined by Senior Minister of the Government of Singapore, Tharman Shanmugaratnam. Before his important position in Singapore, which includes chairmanship of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Senior Minister Tharman has been a very active participant in international financial governance committees at the IMF, the G20, and the UN, all in senior positions. Welcome, Senior Minister. Next, we have Dr. Zhu Min, Chairman of National Institute of Financial Research in the People's Republic of China. Among a variety of important past positions, Dr. Zhu has also been the Deputy Governor of the People's Bank of China and Deputy Managing Director of the IMF. Welcome to you, Dr. Zhu. So I'd like to turn to Dr. Zhu first, because it's fair to say that the most hotly anticipated development in digital currencies at the moment is the CBDC being developed by the People's Bank of China. Dr. Zhu, from your unique position to view that development, could you please walk us through where things stand with this project? What is the Chinese government's intention here? What is the purpose here? And can you give us a sense of the timeline? When might we expect the digital currency electronic payment system, as it's known, to go live?
Well, thank you. First of all, thanks for the invitation, and it's a great honor for me to join this very distinguished panel. We conducted 2 tests, as many people know, so one in Shenzhen, one in Suzhou, and on the digital currencies and small scale. In Shenzhen, roughly about 10 million RMB as sort of consumption coupon free to the people. People can require and get the money, can spend money in around 3,600 shops and various the agents. It's relatively small. Everybody gets 200 RMB. And the second in Suzhou, we expand the scale much bigger, and the agent working with the system expand to roughly 30,000 and more. The whole thing it look like it's sort of residential. It's a consumption type of things like retail. But I think there are a few features within the system. The first issue is defined by M0. In the first 2 tests, they are retail, but if you think about it, if defined by M0, it's still in the very early stage of CBDC, but you still can imagine many occasions and many scenarios you can apply. I mean, for example, the credit to SMEs, for example, the salary payments to the public servants, or to special subsidies and support to the people who need the Medicare or others. So you can imagine hundreds of different occasions you can apply to use and the CBDC to improve the efficiency, accuracy, and transparency, and improve the public policy transmission mechanisms. I think that's the key issue. M0 is a very early stage, but it's still important so many roles. It also have a second-layer structure. It is, although at the end you see as a retail, it's not, because central bank will give the digital currency to the banks. For example, in the second case, involving 4 major commercial banks in China and 1 e-commerce platforms. So those agents were on behalf of central bank, People's Bank of China, and to solicitate, to get applications, to get people to distribute this digital currency to the people. So central bank does not direct it to the retail in the sense to the customer. So it's a 2-layer structure, and it makes things easy in terms of building the system, building the backward office, and also building a sort of controlling system in a clear and relatively less cost and architectures. So I think that's the case. We'll continue to do more tests, expand the scope. It's not increase the size, but increase more occasions, scenarios to apply for the various usage. to test the system, sustainability, durability, accuracy, efficiency, I don't think that we have a particular, and a timeline, as Mark, you mentioned. So we just try to step to carefully to test the system, because for financial and also public service, the security, the stability is the most important thing. But I think even from a very beginning point, M0, the potential for use central bank digital currency in the real economy is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense that you would take this gradually and see how it goes, because the impact, as you say, could be huge, and so we need to be patient. But the world is going to be watching with bated breath to see how it rolls out. Dr. Thurman, of course, China is not the only country that has embarked on a CBDC project, and the way that Dr. Zhu described it, very much a focus in their case, at least to start with, on this retail-facing model and the incorporation of that into e-commerce and other things as they go along. But Singapore, of course, has also been actively exploring this technology, and you've been really ahead of the curve in terms of wholesale CBDCs. So with that in mind, what use cases do you see yours and other CBDC projects contributing to? And also, we're talking here about, in China's case there, about what happens within China, but there's this bigger question about how will they be used across borders, and what risks and opportunities may lie for that cross-border commerce with this technology?
Thanks, Michael. Maybe just to take a step back, I would say central banks, the majority of central banks are now actively exploring the issue of central bank digital currencies, but it's not a foregone conclusion that most central banks will issue CBDCs, be they wholesale or retail CBDCs. The fundamental issue that we are responding to is the rise of e-commerce, the upending of whole industries as a result of digitization of payments, sales, delivery. And together with e-commerce, you now have new means of payments and new payment providers that are emerging. So the old world of cash on the one hand, notes and coins, and bank account-based payments, the traditional two-tier payment system comprising the central bank and commercial banks, that old system is being disintermediated by new players. But the biggest and most fundamental driver is in the real economy. E-commerce is now a major force. And the old world of currency needs to catch up with this new reality. The second thing that central banks are responding to comes out of the first, which is that there's been tremendous innovation in the private sector, particularly outside the banking system in the first instance. New non-bank players have emerged, in some cases, like in China, as formidable competitors. In many other places, they are very often the most innovative players and the fastest growing players. That horse, or that set of horses, has bolted the stable, and central banks are now trying to figure out how they intervene in that race. That's the second major change, and the last 10 years especially have seen that whole new horse race starting. Now, inherent in the network economics or the network externalities that come out of both e-commerce as well as these new private payment systems or ecosystems is that there's an advantage in market power. The more competitive you are, the bigger you get, and the bigger you are, the more data you have from consumers, and the more market power you acquire. So there are serious issues to do with emerging monopolies, not yet present globally, I would say, but that's where it'll come to. And of course, China is a very good example. And also serious issues to do with the fact that these are typically, as they get larger, closed loop ecosystems. They are walled gardens, in other words. And what we have to do in the interests of a vibrant, competitive, and efficient payment system is to restore biodiversity. You can't have walled gardens constituting your national payment system. You need biodiversity and you need interoperability. And that's where we are coming into it as central banks. It's not so much about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies per se, but about what we do about this whole new innovative landscape. We don't want the race to stop. And I think our attitude should not be, at this point, to pick which horse is going to be the winner. Our attitude shouldn't be to try to halt the race. We should want, in fact, a new dark horse in the system, which is existing bank-based payment systems waking up, as many are doing, certainly in Singapore, the banks have responded very well, bank-based payment systems becoming as efficient and as competitive as these new players are, reducing costs, speeding up transactions, offering better service to consumers. That too is happening. And in fact, the banks were really the first in the game of running real-time payments domestically amongst themselves. But this new dark horse is also now in contention.
You know that you're the one. I'm crazy about what joy it brings. I walk on wings